Welcome to DiagnosingDx, the podcast giving diagnostics the platform it deserves. While therapeutics and devices often take center stage, diagnostics is the engine driving precision medicine. I'm your host, David Philby, and each week we spotlight the innovators, breakthroughs, and real-world challenges shaping the future of DX. In this episode of DiagnosingDx, I'm joined by Wissam Hamou, Chief Operating Officer of Biosciences, a company pushing single-cell sequencing out of R&D and into real clinical use. We explore why single-cell is finally ready for the clinic, how AI is unlocking what was previously impossible, and how this technology could transform trials, treatment response, and the future of precision medicine. Hi Wissam, thank you for joining this week. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, David.
Good. I think you're our first guest who's in Paris as we speak. That's pretty cool. What's Paris like at the moment?
Pretty gloomy, and I wish it was a little bit more of a spring weather, but unfortunately it's gloomy and rainy, so it's not the best time to visit Paris.
Now, Wissam, this isn't about yours and I's personal life, but you and I both lived in New York for a long time, and right now a New York fall.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're both missing that in gloomy London and Paris. So there we go. The less said about that, the better. But we've got quite a lot to talk about today, and I'm interested to hear everything about One Biosciences and you know the precision medicine that you guys are tackling. It's awesome. Before we do that, do you want to sort of give an introduction to yourself, your background, your career, and and who you are?
Absolutely. So I'm Wissam. I'm a geneticist by training. So I did my PhD at Mount Sinai Hospital. And really after that went into NGS technology development. So really work with companies to develop new NGS assay, new NGS equipment. And during that time, I understood that there were two phases of the problem that I would not have a lot of exposure to. So it was really the business development part and the clinical aspect of it. And this is why I decided to really explore those two areas a little bit more. And then after I did some time really working in business development in NGS, so really to understand that part of the equation. And then after that, I went into the clinical side of it, the clinical diagnostics, where I got boarded by the state of New York as a clinical lab director, and I've been directing labs for the past 10 years. And recently, last May, I joined One Biosciences as the COO to really push for the next generation sequencing, single cell. So that's why I joined the team to really push the company even further.
And it's been it sounds like a really exciting time to join the company, right? So you've had some. So we'll touch on this obviously later in the show, but you've had some recent good news, which feels like the next step up for the company.
Correct. So we actually closed the Series A last summer. We're around at $17 million. So it is not an easy feat, especially in this financial environment. So we're very happy to close, and it shows a lot of trust that our investors are putting in us, and it really gives us a lot more momentum to continue our mission to really be bringing single cell into the clinics.
Yeah, interesting. Wissam, COO of One Biosciences. Is that a natural progression for you? Did you see yourself becoming a chief operating officer? Was that a career path, or is that something that sort of almost organically, naturally become, the right fit because of the steps you've taken in your career? How's that progressed to now be the COO of a company like One Biosciences?
That's a great question, and in my case, I would say it is an organic growth. I would say, and a natural progression, because I try to be exposed to very different types of people. So really working with BD people, working with hyper technical people, working with clinical, working with physicians, working with lab directors. So when you have that exposure to so many different types of teams, you want to really put yourself at the center of that and as become a hub of, to translate sometimes information, because sometimes, the hyper technical people cannot really explain what they need or what is needed to, the BD people, and vice versa. So, and really kind of organically sort of progress to becoming more of an operation type of role in my career, because I felt that this was the right fit. Because in operation, especially now as the COO, you're really at the hub between all of those different teams, and you need to be, it's like almost a control tower basically, and you're trying to help and to lead a lot of those teams. But to do that, you need to be able to understand them, and to be able to
Mm.
understand them, you need to be able to spend some time with them, and to really almost quote unquote be in the trenches with the bioinformatics team, with the BD team, with the wet lab team. So I think that's I think the key to becoming, a CEO, or at least in my case, going into the operation side of things.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously you've got a rich technical and scientific background, but also you touched on that you went into the business development side, and so now you're bringing that into a role that is ultimately across all departments of an early scientific company.
Correct.
Um, and so it helps that you can sort of have empathy and understand each department's characters, goals, and everything in between as the COO. That's super interesting.
It is definitely a blessing to be able to have that role, because you're exposed to so many different things, and and you need to fix a lot of things, you need to help build a lot of things, a lot of structure. But I think for me, I'm a creator grower. That's my personality. So really, what brings a smile in the morning, in when I go to work, that's what really motivates me to really create and grow, and to bring, structure, and to expand. So that's why, I was very excited to join One Biosciences, because it was at the perfect time where the expansion is really exponential. At the point, we're expanding not only in the French market, but we are expanding in the US market. So
Yeah.
having, by almost across the ocean type of team, so that's very interesting, and it's very challenging, but uh, the challenges bring, a lot of satisfaction when it's done.
That's awesome. It almost feels like you're almost perfect for the role, in the scientific background plus the commercial background, understanding of the business, the different departments all coming together. But also even sort of geographically, the fact that you can sort of be in Paris, but also, New York, and they're a French company looking to expand into the US, and you can bring that knowledge. That's almost, I'm sure if they could write the perfect job description, that that would have been really helpful. So sounds like a perfect fit. Let's talk about One Biosciences. You also give us an introduction into, who are One Biosciences, the science and the sort of vision of the company.
Absolutely. So One Bioscience is a tech bio company, originally a spin-off from the Curie Institute in Paris. So it was co-founded by David, Magali, and Celine back in 2020, and really spent those past 5 years perfecting single cell, because single cell has been around for the past 10 years, even more. So, but they've always been a R&D project. When you do single cell, you're doing R&D, maybe some clinical research, but still, it was not there yet in terms of the quality of data that was generated, especially from FFP blocks. So really, our goal is to bring single cell to the clinics. We want to be the first company to bring single cell as an LDT test that will be offered for patients and clinicians, because I believe that's really the next frontier. And I've been saying that actually for the past 10 years, that genetic testing are actually great right now. It's great to have, X amount of gene panel, and this is what we have right now. But I always make that metaphor as, tumors. If we're trying to understand a tumor, it's like we're trying to understand what are humans. And if we're taking 1 million human beings and doing an average of height, weight, all the human features, when you do an average, it's just going to be an average. It's not going to be representative of the diversity of human beings. And it's the same thing for tumors. When we're doing those tests, we're doing an average of those tumor cells. We don't understand really what the tumor is. We don't understand its heterogeneity. We don't understand the tumor microenvironment that has a critical role in the diagnostic and the therapeutic aspect for in oncology. So this is why we want to really to become that trailblazer, and we are really trailblazing that field to bring a lot more granularity in the information that is given to the physician for diagnostics and therapeutic purposes.
Why Wissam is single cell? Why is it only now we're starting to see the uptick, and compared to, you said it's been around sort of 10 years, the specificity and the quality of the data it can produce? Why is it only now we're starting to see companies like One Biosciences and others? Because there is talk in the in the industry. It's a bit of a hot topic, along with everything around precision medicine at the moment. Why now? Why is it taking so long? Would probably be a better question. To get the sort of the eyes on it that it deserves.
So I think the first reason will be cost. That's as simple as that. Cost, and the second reason will be trust, because it's always the same sort of cycle in terms of revolution in biology. It starts with an invention. So DropSeq really, I would say, really catapulted single cell into the field and really did a huge it dropped the bomb. That paper was amazing, and wow, that's great. You can create your own single cell apparatus with microfluidic. And then after that, there have been a lot of papers. Oh, we can actually create data, we can generate data, but then after that, you need to be able to analyze that data. So the tools have to be created to analyze the data that is exponentially more difficult to analyze than bulk data. And then after that, you need to start making conclusions of that data. And then after that, it's the same thing. You need to, decreasing the cost will open up a lot more research to be done, and then decreasing further the cost. You open up to more public. But then you get to a point where cost has been decreasing, but even if the cost is decreased, you need to have quote unquote clinical grade data that needs to be coming from those single cell. And when you're doing on fresh and even frozen is relatively easy, I would say, to generate that data. But when you try to do that on FFP samples, that's a whole nother game, because it's a very difficult type of sample to deal with in single cell. So that's why I think the last frontier is really trying to get that FFPE really sample type figured out to understand how we can extract as much information from that FFPE slide as we can.
When you talk about the cost side of it being such a factor and the inevitable evolution of technology and how quickly, and when we talk about the ability to do whole genomes now and how far that's come from the first one down to where we are now to run, to sequence a whole genome. How far has that cost come down, and is that still a factor that needs to continue to decline for it to be able to provide the sort of clinical validation that this is going to be, that you're going to be able to use this, in high volume?
Yeah. We're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And our goal at One Biosciences is really to bring the cost down to the same cost as any other NGS panel football. So that's the goal. We're almost there, but it's not there yet. We're doing some tweaking, but that's really one of the key milestones that we want to achieve in the very near future.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so what is it about how One Biosciences is doing things that's leading the way? What makes your science and your process and your technology as you called it, as a trailblazer, what is it that you guys are pushing forward that makes it really exciting?
So I think it's really two parts where it's really the sample prep and the bioinformatics. So first of all, the sample prep is essential to the assay, because I always say the same thing, garbage in, garbage out. If you're inputting bad quality nuclei into your assay, you're gonna get bad data. That's as simple as that. So really, we took a long time to really perfect our sample prep to extract the best quality nuclei possible from FFPE slides to be able to input into single cell assay. And then the second part is really the bioinformatics. So the bioinformatics pipeline that was created at One Biosciences, it was made from the beginning to become clinical. So it's not a single cell pipeline that we're trying to adapt to the clinical setting, but from the beginning, it was created with a clinical report in mind. So I think those are really the key differences to and that One Biosciences is bringing to the market.
And so once you guys achieve these goals in terms of getting the cost and the availability to where it wants to be, where do you see the sort of biggest impact once live? Is this going to be something that impacts a certain population of patients? Is this going to be maybe on the pharma side in terms of their ability to, target certain populations of trial candidates and so forth? Or where do you see it having the most impact?
I think it will have impact in all of those areas, from the pharmaceutical to the clinical diagnostics to the therapeutics. Because on one hand, for example, for pharmaceutical companies, we can possibly help rescue clinical trials because we are so granular and we can understand a lot better the reason why maybe some patients are not responding and some patients are responder, and we can actually potentially save clinical trials. That's on one hand, and on the second hand, in more of a clinical and therapeutic area, we are currently able to we discovered molecular signatures of the response to some treatment for chemotherapy for some types of cancer. So being able to predict the response for some types of chemotherapy and also therapy will be extremely helpful, not only for the clinicians but also for the payers, because if we can help patients get the right treatment a lot sooner, everybody's a winner. The patient is a winner, the clinician is a winner, and the insurance is a winner. So really, it's a win-win-win. Being able to get, that next level is really taking that microscope to something, is going so much deeper, understanding so much better. And right now we're just scratching the surface of what we can find and what we can understand in the single cell realm. It will only continue to be cheaper and more comprehensive and more exhaustive, and more cells are going to be sequenced with more genes, with more depth, and cheaper. So it is just the beginning. It was really we're at the same step in history where NGS was a dozen years ago, when they were starting to bring NGS to the market, where they had 5-gene panel, and it was expensive, but this was this was the beginning, and then it got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and now we have 700 gene panels that are on the market.
Do you see single cell then as the future, and it has the ability to sort of make existing technologies and workflows obsolete, and if it's given the right sort of time, investment, and advances that we've spoken about?
I don't think it's gonna render all of those other technologies in terms of NGS and bulk obsolete. For us, our belief is that we're complementary. We're complementary to NGS, and I think that's the key, is really bringing and to add to the equation. We're not here to replace, because it will be silly of us to say that we're going to replace a 500 gene panel that looking at DNA mutations. We're complementary. We're here to add more information. and NGS can do things that we can't, and we can do a lot of things that NGS can't, and bulk NGS can't. So I think it's really about this, trying to make sure that we are really comprehensive, but at the same time complementary.
Yeah, that makes sense. That for me sounds like the purpose of precision medicine, right? And why it's so exciting that that for years people have got, good healthcare, good results in that average of diagnostics, but actually, if we want to continue to better people's lives, extend people's lives and so forth, whilst they're dealing with, incredibly tough challenges that they're met with in life, the ability to be more precise and then sort of give them just that bit more. That's why everything in precision medicine is so exciting right now. Because actually, the more you learn about it, sometimes if you've never been through any of these things, you'd be living your life sort of in complete ignorant bliss about, one day if something happens to me, I'll get the right treatment. And then actually, the more you dig into these things, you find out that actually there's this population of people that are getting good advice, but generic advice. And actually, you're almost like, oh, really? That we're not able to give them more and do better for them. And you sort of peel the onion back all the time.
Yes,
so it's lovely that this, yeah.
That's the key. That's the key, and it's really adding. And we're standing on the shoulders of other people, and then they are standing on shoulders of other people. And it's in genetics, it's like that. We keep on adding and adding layers. We're not here to destroy what has been done before, because those are the foundations of medicine and precision medicine. We're here to really add to that, and there's so much still to be done.
Wissam, where's the company now then in terms of progress towards its goals, in terms of whether it's clinical validation, what you guys have done in France and Europe already versus where you're in the US, and what does that Series A actually allow you to do as a sort of next milestone and the next steps?
Absolutely. So the Series A is really allowing us to fast forward, to really press the play button and also the fast forward button in terms of the European market and the US market. So we're in the process of finalizing our lab in the US, where we're going to be pushing to get a clinical approval of our assay. And at the same time, the French lab is still here. We are doing still a lot of R&D and to try to continue on improving on our current assay, and also to seek for certification, European certification for our assay and lab in France. And in the meantime, we are collaborating with pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies on different types of projects to again bring that single cell data to those companies that are seeking it.
And so they've got some really big plans actually, and we're sort of really at the forefront of them. So that's really exciting. What do you think the biggest hurdles? And this is whether it's as a company, whether it's going into the US or in singles. Actually, I think that's a separate question, but let's do the company and expansion and everything you're trying to do. What do you think the biggest challenges are going to be that you guys are going to have to overcome?
I think it's working with the regulator to create guidelines, because single cell, there are no very specific guidelines about single cell assay yet. So it's really working with the regulator to create a framework for single cell assay in the future. And that's the thing, that's going to be the hardest part of our mission. But this has been done before. When NGS, the first NGS assay was brought to the market, they had the people that brought it on the market, the team on Foundation Medicine, they had to go through the same exact thing. And now that we have Vincent Miller, our executive chairman of the board, and he was the former CMO of Foundation Medicine, he's been through that. He's been through those hurdles. And the fact that he's our executive chairman of the board really shows how much trust he has that we are going to make it.
Yeah, awesome. And what about single cell specifically, in terms of, what are the challenges that, as this pocket of an industry, what does the future hold, and what are the hurdles that you're gonna have to overcome to really commercialize it and get it into sort of the standard of practice?
Education and data. That's as simple as that. So, and one fits into the other. So, really generate enough clinical data and clinical use data to be able to convince physician and also change the guidelines in terms of treatment to show that there is a clinical impact for that our assay. We can help patients. So that's really the first part is really generate that data, and then again, really that education part to educate people to make them understand that single cell, it's not just an R&D tool. It is a tool that can be used in the clinic. It is a tool that they should use to help their own patients.
Education, education, education. We hear it
Yep.
so often. You know, you can have the greatest science in the world if you cannot. It's twofold, isn't it? Well, it's probably more than twofold. But if you can't educate patients on the benefits, but also change workflows, you know, with some you know, there's a lot of stubbornness. There's a lot of, you know, physicians that don't see the need to change. They've done things one way for a certain amount of time, and yeah, education, it's such a big topic, especially in the US, where
Yes.
you know the market is so broad. Trying to get that message out makes, I think, everybody faces that challenge now. It's just, you know, it's just part of it. That's really interesting. And you mentioned that the chairman of the board is X Foundation, and therefore, you know, has been there, done that, and knows how to bring this new technology to market. Actually, this is a great question for you, because it's probably your responsibility. But how are you guys setting up the company to, you know, to thrive?
Yeah. It's all about the team. So really choosing the right people. Choosing the right people to really help at every single level, from you know, a lab technician to the bioinformatics team, to the data team, to the AI team, to the executive suite. So every single person that we bring on board is very important to us. And we make a great point to really hire only the people that we're 100% sure that not only they can bring something to the company, but they are a team player, because all of this is a team effort. It's not a one person or or sub team or a department mission. It is a mission for the entire company, and we're going, you know, to achieve those goals as a company and as a team. And I think really that's our key. Every single person that works at One Bioscience is mission driven, and I think that's the keys to success.
Yeah, interesting. With you mentioned AI there, because it's a massive part of your technology, and going from huge amounts of data to you know the end goal. So talk me through that. How's AI being implemented, and how strong of you know, your business model, but also your technology, you know, how big a part does it play?
So it plays an essential part in our data analysis. So not only we built you know, our own data sets, and we're updating our foundation model for our AI analysis. That's, I think, a key part, because we want to automatize most of the part, basically, of the data analysis, because we want it to be robust enough, we want it to be comprehensive enough, and we want it to be reliable. So really to build a tool that will be able to gather enough data sets to be able to understand the complexity, but at the same time, at the big picture, at the higher level, but at the same time having really that granularity, and really analyze the data at the single cell. And I think that's the key to single cells, really bringing that AI, because only an AI will be able to analyze that type of complexity of data in a short amount of time. Because if we can have bioinformatician analyze single cell data, but unfortunately, it will take too long to be applicable in the clinic. So, you know, when you want to have a 1 week to maximum 2 weeks turnaround time, it is not feasible to have a data analysis run by humans. We have to bring AI tools to be able to get that speed, that robustness, and that comprehensiveness of the analysis.
So because in precision medicine, right? So AI feels like well, precision medicine feels like one of the parts of the industry that AI has had, one of the best proof of concepts early on. Everyone talks about AI being, the hype, and it's a bit frothy now. Where's it actually going to land in terms of? We all know it's going to have a really great impact on our lives and business, but there's definitely edges of it that are probably going to fall away. And so we didn't need AI for that, to be honest. It's just and there was a lot of hype. But precision medicine, actually, the acceleration that a lot of industries have seen from AI, precision medicine feels right up there with the sort of biggest proof of concepts. And when we're talking about something that's been around 10 years, but needed the technology advances, the speed advances, therefore the cost reductions to make it accessible to people, it feels like you're talking AI has come around a really great time. Were you guys concentrated on AI as part of your process from day one? Was that always part of it, that you knew this could actually be the thing that flips this? Because you guys have been around like 5-6 years, right?
Yep.
So actually that's quite early on in single cell. So
Yep.
it feels like AI that's a massive part of the ability to bring this to market.
Correct. One Biosciences really believe that AI is the key, is really the key, because when you get to a single cell level, again, you get to a complexity, level of complexity in terms of the data that you analyze, that there's no other way around it. You have to use AI. You have to use AI not only to analyze the data, but to be able to analyze the data, you have to train an AI with enough data that they know what to do. So I think really that's the key. It's almost the chicken and egg. Is you need to build enough data set to be able to analyze, but at the same time, if you didn't have that vision from the beginning, you would not have built that data set. And I think that's really the key for us. We use public data sets of single cell, but also that has been supplemented with a lot of data sets that we generated in our lab internally. So really combining those two really gives us an incredible data set to be able to train AI, to be able to understand single cell a lot better, and to be able to have a more polished final product.
So that just compounds, right? That becomes a really positive cycle, in that AI assesses the information that you collect. It also gets smarter as it goes because it's assessing more and more data, and it just gets better and better and better the more data you're putting into it, right?
And correct. And we've been, training it and constantly training our AI model. And not only that, is that we always double check and make sure that whatever the AI has found can be orthogonally validated by human beings. And we see an extremely high level of correlation between what a human would have found, after 3 days of analysis versus what our AI platform finds in 15 minutes.
So interesting, isn't it? And you mentioned, in terms of turnaround, the goal at the moment is to get to sort of like 2 weeks before, and you need to sort of be with under that 2 weeks of being able to sort of provide responses. Are you sort of there now, or is that something you're still working towards, as you start to bring this product to market?
So we're here. We're there now. We're
Right.
there now. We're already with our partners. We are able to do that, and we're actually able to do it faster. So the goal for us in the end is really to get to being complementary to NGS. So matching its turnaround time. We don't want to be later than NGS, because we want the physician to get the full picture at once. So right now, depending on the test and depending on the company, it's between 1 week to 2 weeks, but more on the 2 week side. So what we're pushing right now is 2 weeks, but we have plans to go even faster.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wissam, anything else that you want to sort of highlight in terms of one's biosciences or the science and sort of what you guys are doing?
I think, if there is someone that is listening to the podcast and think they can really contribute to the company, feel free to reach out, because we're always looking for bright minds that can help out, and that can be a great fit for this fun and challenging mission.
I love that. And you mentioned obviously throughout the call about being mission driven. It feels like a really great time to be joining a company like One Biosciences, where you are at the cutting edge of technology advancements, precision medicine, AI into precision medicine, with what feels like a pretty clear impact in terms of a proof of concept that can be achieved. It sounds like a great time
It is.
to be joining the company and to be entering into the single cell industry. Wissam, you also mentioned that it's not an easy landscape to hire, and to raise, and you guys have been successful in doing that. What's your objective outlook on diagnostics and where the market is and where it's going?
So our objective is really to make history. That's as simple as that. We want to be the first ones to bring a single cell assay into the clinics, to first ones to have an LDT approval. That's our goal. We really want to do that, but not just for the sake of it, to really open up the market, to really say to the world that it is possible. The world is ready, the field is ready for single cell to come into the clinic, and we want to really change people's mind and to help patients, because at the end of the day, our clients are patients, and that's who we want to help.
Awesome. Wissam, thank you for taking the time. It's super interesting to talk with someone at the forefront of these technologies and where you guys are, and it feels like you've got some really great momentum. So I look forward to seeing how the US expansion goes and how you guys thrive over the next few years. But all the best. It's fantastic to hear from you.
Thanks a lot for having me, David. It was a pleasure.